let's talk quality.
All right.
So I know you've been in the consulting space for going on 15 years, Sunita, and during that time, you've helped many organizations, especially government contractors, get their ISO and CMMI systems up and running. Today, we're going to focus on the ISO side of life. So in your experience, what would you say? Is it easier to build the system for ISO and achieve that certification, or is it harder to keep that certification after it's obtained?
Almost all 100 times, I will say maintaining the systems. Building is only one part. I won't say it's the easier part or the easiest part, but it is one part of the entire puzzle. Subsequent year maintenance and making sure that you get the continual improvement, that is where, creating a mature system, established repeatabilities is what is going to be more tricky. Getting certification is easier.
Okay. So what about keeping it makes it harder? What can they expect after they get that certificate in hand? I know it can be like, I get to kick back and relax now, but it seems like getting the ISO is kind of like obtaining your college degree in a way, but then there's continuing education.
Correct.
So what does that look like?
So there are several components here. So let me start talking about if you have just one standard, like you just have ISO 9001, building that system and making sure all the right stakeholders are part of it, and having an early adoption, making sure that everybody understands that it's all about processes. You are not trying to create new processes. It is the process within your organization, how you do what you do and how you make sure that it's all being consistent. So building that, having everybody's buy-in, making sure everybody's trained, makes it easier in the subsequent years and makes it easier for it to be managed over a period of time. But as you start to add more standards to it, that's where it becomes a little bit more complex. So having a good baseline standard like ISO 9001 is always a good part. Trying to rush through implementation is one of the drawbacks I've seen with most organizations because they are limited on time, right? If you have like a RFP you are trying to respond to and you need a certification, you may have only so much time. Like if you are trying to do something in 90 days, having all the different stakeholders involved, having all the system built does take time to show the maturity, the level of maturity. And that is one of the deterrents. Secondly, if you have multiple standards. On multiple standards, there are overlaps as well as there are specific needs for a certain standard, like 27001 have information security requirements, but it has the baseline. You can take everything from the requirements of 9001. So there is a good bit of overlap, but there is also the specific requirements that you have to meet. And having an individual within the organization who can understand both standards and the nuance of the, specialized standard, that's the tricky part. So having to maintain that over a period of time, that can be a challenge.
Absolutely. And what do you see that typically causes the most headaches post-certification? What do you wish that people knew about ISO? I know you mentioned rushing through the implementation. What kinds of headaches does that cause later on?
So what happens is if you do not have invested enough time in implementation, you do not know the periodicity of some actions, some critical actions. It's very well understood, you have to do annual audits. You have to go through an internal audit, you have to go through an external audit, you have to do management review. But beyond that, there are several action items that have to be taken. Corrective action, risk assessment, looking at the changes that are happening, non-conformances that are identified, vendor evaluation. So things of that nature, which are going to happen on a routine basis and that have to be managed. And those tasks, which at the defined periodicity, I see those not occurring. And what happens is, by and large, they are missed. Mm-hmm. And you are at the end of the year, and then you're just doing a catch-up. Like, you will set up objectives and the objectives are missed. And just looking at the end of the year, seeing that, okay, I missed these objectives is not a good strategy.
Right.
They have to be looked at every quarter or even more frequently to see if you have to do some course corrections.
Absolutely. So it sounds like a lot of these things can kind of fall by the wayside because it's not necessarily top of mind for everyone.
Exactly.
I mean, for us, it's top of mind, but not for, somebody where they have a regular job and this is something extra with that.
Exactly. And a lot of people kind of think like, oh, this is ISO. And that's my pet peeve. People think this is an ISO requirement. No, this is a business requirement. You're not doing something special for ISO.
Right. We need to have goals and objectives.
Exactly. It's your processes. That is what it is. We do this for ISO. When somebody says that to me, I'm like, no. We got this all wrong then.
Right. So the ISO is essentially training that helps make their business better. And then they think it's like, oh, this is ISO. And it's like, no, this is truly a best practice for your business.
Correct. And ISO is not prescriptive as to you have to do this or that. It's a set of requirements, and it's organizations shall do something, which is organizations have to do those things. And by and large, organizations are doing those things. It's just that some of the activities may be in a simplified way. Like if you don't have a purchasing department, you will not have a purchase request process and things of that nature. Then define the process to be very simple. And that's what needs to be documented. We don't need to say the purchasing manager will send something. That's just adding too many layers and derives no benefit. And the standard also allows organizations to define the processes in a simplified way, because there is a different requirement for a large organization, mid-size, and a small. And the standards are generic enough. They are not written for one size. They have to fit everything. And that's how they are perceived. So what may have fit another organization may not fit you. You're different. That's what I think a lot of organizations miss out on.
Absolutely. And when would be a good time for an organization to get help with their maintenance efforts? What are some signs that it might be time to get some outside help?
So generally, I would recommend that you may want to have your internal team trained to be internal auditors. That's a good thing. But every now and again, you want, like every couple of years, you want external consultant who can do internal audits for you, because they are a separate pair of eyes who will look at it and give you improvements. And that's what all standards are about. But for maintenance, I would say your audits are a telltale sign. If you are having major findings, and you're having struggle understanding and speaking to certain things, that is a good sign that you want to engage external organization who can help you manage these things. And external organization is also very beneficial when you have multiple standards and not enough cross-training. Meaning you have maybe a compliance person, or you may have a quality assurance person. That person is very strong on, let's say, 9001, but not strong on 27001. That is a time when you want to say, okay, let's engage someone. And that external company who provides the maintenance can also cross-train this individual so that they understand what the additional requirements are and consistently manage and meet the requirement. That way, you're not waiting for the audit to show the weaknesses in the system.
Right. Absolutely. So it sounds like if an organization only maybe has one standard, it's a little bit easier to do in-house and stay on top of, but it gets increasingly complex when we add on additional standards that have different degrees of specificity that are really nuanced, where, an HR person might be able to understand 9001 well enough, but then you add on something really complicated like the 27001, and that can be really overwhelming. That's where we can come in and kind of alleviate some of that stress.
That is absolutely correct. Because it's not like they don't understand the process, it's just they have to be reminded. And if that's not part of their regular practice, it can seem like additional work.
Right.
And just
Who really
like
likes that?
organizations are taking IT support or managed service provider support or services from other organizations, this is that same kind of, we come in, we help you periodically. There is no, we are not their employees and not even, contractors sitting on anybody's head. And it's like a support. So they can always lean on to, okay, I need more help right now. I have more, so that support can look like that person is replacing an individual, or that support can look like that consultant is supporting and cross-training that quality person.
Okay. Excellent. So we're able to either, step in and really take the reins, like if there's not a quality person there,
Exactly.
and then in other situations, we're able to be additional support.
Correct.
And also, I guess, in instances where that main linchpin who had been taking care of ISO, if they leave, that might be another opportunity or instance when somebody would need us. What do you see happen in organizations where their quality person who'd been really overseeing the ISO, when they leave, what have you seen happen there?
A lot, many times in the recent times, I've seen that happen more and more, because also with the work that's involved with multiple standards has caused maybe that, or just generally, I have seen this across the board, that a lot of people are leaving the organization, and we have seen the requirements for maintenance crop up a lot. So not even person leaving, but when the introduction of multiple standard happens, it is very hard for a quality person to be able to address the requirement and have everybody answer to those needs.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Wonderful. Well, that's been a great chat today about quality. Stay tuned for future segments. If you have additional questions or things that you'd like us to cover, drop us a comment below and let us know.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking.
It absolutely was. Bye now.